Well, dang, this was not on my bingo card for 2025. Chris Perkins, creative director of D&D and the writer of Curse of Strahd, probably the most famous D&D adventure, left the company a few days ago. That's kind of big news, but then Jeremy Crawford, the current lead game designer for Dungeons & Dragons, also announced that he was leaving Wizards of the Coast yesterday, and suddenly this is a seismic shift in how pretty much everything is run, not only in terms of image, but in terms of creative direction. These were the two most powerful voices in game design at WotC. There's actually kind of a lot to talk about. Before we jump into the big picture stuff though, I want to share a small picture story with you. About 2 years ago, Wizards of the Coast were being slated in the mainstream news and across the community because they were attempting to revoke the open gaming license. During that time, WotC did a lot of nasty stuff, and lots of people, both within the company and without, were really angry. And a lot of those people who worked at Wizards of the Coast were, rightly, in my opinion, very critical of their bosses. And over that time of fire and fury, not one person who I ever spoke to said anything negative about Jeremy and Chris. And this is the time where every bean was spilled, every grievance was meticulously articulated. But over the years, at least as far as I've heard, and I've heard kind of a lot now, these are two people who are genuinely just trying their best at an increasingly difficult company. You might not agree with every creative decision they've made, and it's fun to criticize weird creative choices, but that's all it is. It's just fun criticism. What really matters is that people are a positive influence in their community and to the people around them and the people who rely on them. And I think these guys really were that. Okay, now let's talk about what we know for certain went down here. It's the summer of 2024. The new PHB has just dropped and Chris Perkins is promoted to creative director and Jeremy Crawford is promoted to game director. These seem, at least at the time, like pretty important decisions. This doesn't feel temporary at all. This feels like a new horizon. Over the following few months, the rest of the core rulebooks are released to what I want to say is a medium to warm response from the community, and then 6 months later, both leaders announce they are leaving. Those are the straight facts, but there's a lot of stuff we know has definitely played a part in getting us to here. There's also stuff we can quite reliably infer if we look at the statements these two guys have made themselves and statements released by Hasbro, because this marks the true end of the team that made D&D 5e the thing that it is today.
Alright, nobody move! This is a robbery!
Wait, is that a gun?
Yeah!
Dude, this is the D&D world. Everyone knows that firearms are garbage. It's literally worse than using a bow.
Oh no, dude, this gun's from The Man's Guide to the End of Time.
Wait, is that the D&D expansion that introduces time travel mechanics, the new gunner class, and a load of new guns and bullets that any class can use?
That's the one.
Oh, in that case, sir, the money's all yours. Please don't kill me.
The Man's Guide to the End of Time is out now on Kickstarter. This epic expansion comes with an all-new paradox system to incorporate time travel into your games. Awesome subclasses, new mechanics for enhancing mounted combat, new gunslinging mechanics, hundreds of new magic items, adorable familiars, 20 plus new spells, new species, and stunning art. If you back today using my link in the description, you'll also get these epic dice. They're meant to be for early bird backers only, but I got a hookup and all backers who use my link can still grab them for free. The Man's Guide is out now on Kickstarter, from the co-creators of Ryoko's Guide and Heliana's Guide to Monster Hunting. Grab your copy and your free dice today. So let's start by looking at the tweet Chris Perkins made to announce his departure. Today I retire from Wizards of the Coast after 28 years. With D&D's 50th anniversary wrapping up and the revised rulebooks doing gangbusters, this is the perfect fairy tale ending for me. I can't wait to enjoy D&D purely as a fan again, knowing the game is in good hands. See you in the Feywild. This is pretty standard stuff, I think. Says he's retiring and he says D&D is in good hands. I don't know if he's referring to the other game designers or to Hasbro there, but I'm going to assume he's referring to the game designers. The most interesting line is obviously this one, that the revised rulebooks are doing gangbusters. This is a direct counter from Perkins to the narrative of industry analysts who have been saying that the new rulebooks haven't been doing gangbusters at all, at least relative to Hasbro's expectations. We saw Mike Merles do a breakdown recently, and he is a former creative director at WotC and also by reputation, another very nice person. He does not seem the type to me to
to lie about the numbers being worse than they are. He speculated that the entirety of D&D 2024's core rulebooks have made less profit than Brandon Sanderson's single Kickstarter for his own TTRPG. Notably, Hasbro didn't even mention D&D in their last quarterly report after gassing it up for years as this huge incoming tidal wave of revenue. Various analysts who have run Hasbro's released figures also say that they indicate that D&D has actually gone down in profit in 2024 relative to 2023. But Chris takes time out of his farewell message to say, actually, it's doing amazing. It's doing gangbusters. I think this is him just trying to head off any D&D doom posting early. It's him saying, look, I have not been fired. I am leaving voluntarily, everything is going well. Which I think will be quite important to Chris in terms of legacy, right? Like, Wizards of the Coast reputation has taken a big tumble in the last 4 years, but Chris has been there for the last 28. He was there in the good times too. In fact, he's a huge part of why there were any good times at all. Of course, he's going to leave by gassing up his final project. Even if the numbers are below expectations, and I don't know if you can really tell, but even if they are, you can't expect the guy to be like, yeah, I'm leaving, by the way, D&D 2024 was a big disappointment, lamau. But the conspiracy theories really started to come out of the woodwork when Jeremy Crawford also announced that he was leaving. There's a rumor floating around that Hasbro are offering some kind of hugely lucrative exit package for employees over 50 to sweep them out of the company, but I can't really find a credible source on this. It just seems to be something that someone has said. Also, Jeremy Crawford's in his 40s, so at least here, that reasoning is just nonsense. What isn't nonsense, though, is that Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford have been the two biggest voices in D&D design since Mike Merle's left. And, you know, they're buddies, they're old chums. I wouldn't be surprised if one wanted to leave, the other might think, yeah, it's time for me to dip as well. I don't report on leaks anymore, as you know, but for what it's worth, I still talk to people at Wizards of the Coast sometimes, and people who formerly worked at Wizards of the Coast, and the consensus is that these guys have wanted to leave for a while. They were persuaded to stick around to see through the 50th anniversary, and now that it's done, they're moving on. I know it's not as juicy as, oh my god, the books failed and now everyone's fired, but it's the truth, or at least it's what I believe to be the truth. However, I do understand the suspicion if you look at it all just on paper. The VTT fails, 90% of the VT team are fired, the VP of Digital voluntarily leaves in a very suspicious way after blowing $30 million of company money, and then the two biggest designers leave all in the span of a single month. Yeah, the timeline is a bit sketchy, but sometimes life just shakes out that way. People on Reddit were even arguing that Sigil's failure was in some way these guys' fault, which is just nonsense. It's a completely different team. It had basically nothing to do with them at all. However, none of that changes the fact that yes, D&D is very clearly not where Hasbro wanted it to be when they drew up their big plans in 2021. D&D was supposed to be a billion-dollar brand by 2027-ish, if I recall, and that's a laughable suggestion now. Which kind of brings us to the broader point I want to discuss with the old guard leaving, and that is the executives at Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast meddling in the brand. The OGL was not a designer's choice. In fact, I've seen internal messages from some designers kicking off about it. I think people who criticize these designers basically overestimate their power to actually initiate change. I definitely did. I thought they had more that they could do. I think maybe they could have done a little bit more, but power is one of those things where whether you believe you have it or you believe you don't, you're right. The OGL, the Pinkertons, pretty much any controversy you want to name, the failure of Sigil, these are executive failures. They're not failures of the design team. And we've seen increased meddling from the executives in D&D in an attempt to monetize it, at the expense of people who work in the company and at the expense of the community. But we've already established that Chris and Jeremy are nice dudes, and they're not stupid, like they use the internet, presumably. They know about the accusations of abuse from within Wizards of the Coast. They know that some people have been mistreated in the past. They know that the Pinkertons was wrong. They know that the OGL was wrong. They've watched members of their own team be thrown away. And I just bet it's a freaking drain on you, dude, to work in those conditions. You are kind of the face of the brand, and the brand is being ruined by twats. And then people online are gonna think that you are one of the twats. D&D used to be kind of ignored by WotC executives and by Hasbro, and that's awesome if you're a designer. It means you've got total freedom. Then D&D suddenly
suddenly starts making a little bit of money, and the corporate parasites start swarming over its body and making plans to drain its blood. Then you have to watch as Larian part ways with the company. You have to watch as controversy after controversy just rolls in. I'm just not surprised that they wanted to go. These guys built a really awesome house before their bosses burst through the door and started a bunch of fires. So I really get the sense from former and current employees that working on D&D used to be really different. It used to mean creative freedom. You could do kind of what you wanted. But after they made it successful, the response was more pressure, more deadlines, more money, always a demand for more money, and mistreatment of the community and even of your own people. It reminds me of Image Comics in the 90s, right? Marvel was getting so big and so much money, and they were treating their talent like crap, so the talent all left, founded their own company, and became multimillionaires. The designer pay is low at WotC. I think last I heard they pay independents 10 cents per word. Now, I pay 25 cents per word, and I'm a nobody. They are a billion-dollar company. Salaried designer positions pay a lot more, of course, but they're still far less than independent, successful designers make. By rights, all the creators of the 5e system should be multi-millionaires, if you ask me. And they're not. So maybe it is time that Chris and Jeremy make their own creative company. Maybe this is Image Comics, but for TTRPGs. That could be a reason why they're leaving basically at the same time, because they intend to go into business together. Getting out of the corporate world is always a good thing. All big corporations are just filled with parasites. These executives haven't created a thing in their entire lives. They exist only to suck the blood out of the people who actually make the game. But of course, they might not be making their own company. It might not be that dramatic. They might just go on to fill their lives with something else. Maybe they could become sailors. I think they'd be good sailors. So good for them. No matter what they do, these boys will be just fine. But what does it mean for the future of Dungeons and Dragons? Well, if you rewind back to when 1D&D was first announced, just before the OGL controversy happened, pretty much everyone has gone from then to now. Cynthia Williams is gone, Kyle Brink is gone, Ray Winninger is gone, Perkins is gone, Crawford is gone, even Larian has gone. Chris Kao is also gone, the VP of Digital who was supposed to make Sigil a microtransaction hell but messed it up. He's also the guy who allegedly was a massive abuser, and allegedly everyone hated. Allegedly. But also, yeah, allegedly. But yeah, with basically everyone disappearing who was behind the 1D&D push, and the idea of a billion-dollar brand looking like a joke at this point, what does Hasbro do? Well, call me a gullible idiot, but I actually think they are giving up on the aggressive monetization of the brand. D&D is just kind of impossible to exploit on that level. That's why this game kicks ass. It is fundamentally anti-corporate, because at the end of the day, it will always be free. So it seems they're just gonna float the IP out there, make Baldur's Gate 4, make a couple of TV shows maybe if they get picked up. Maybe we'll see another movie. We'll probably get some more Legos, and hopefully we'll keep seeing third-party content appear on D&D Beyond, because that is absolutely the best thing they have done in the past like 5 years. And I think that's awesome because it means less direct executive meddling with the actual direction for the game. Executives only ever meddle to exploit more money from the community. They never make the game better. So with less executive micromanaging, there's more room for new design ideas and perspectives. I'd like to see WotC get back to innovative design, not iterative design. The best third-party content creators out there can do absolute magic with this system, and I'd like to see WotC try their hand at it. One final idea that's been floating around is that WotC are reducing the size of the design team on purpose because they intend to utilize AI to generate adventures. Personally, I doubt it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I absolutely think that executives would use AI and fire everyone if they thought they could get away with it, but I don't think they can get away with it. I think the community uproar would be way too big. I think someone in the company would leak that they were being forced to use AI to generate content, and people would freak out and they'd have to retract it. I just don't think they're gonna try right now. So yeah, I'm wishing the design team all the best, and I'm actually tentatively optimistic. Don't get me wrong, I still think any competent designer is infinitely better off going independent rather than working at Wizards of the Coast for both money and mental health reasons, but I'm not gonna doom and gloom this for no reason. Last time the executives got out of the designer's way, we got 5th edition. who knows what we'll get this time, now that the executives are hopefully backing off again. So, in short, I kind of think this is all good news. The people who want to leave get to leave, and maybe they'll go and create independently without corporate oversight, and the people who are left behind can rise up and maybe take the game in a more interesting direction. But this is the end of an era. Pretty much everyone who is responsible for the 5th edition system is now gone. Now, you can like them or not, but they were, without a shadow of a doubt, very important to the hobby, and it would look very different without them. But let me know what you think. Maybe D&D is over, maybe it's not, or maybe you just don't care because the game is free and the game is yours, and no amount of middle-aged dudes being shuffled around is going to change that. If you want to support this channel and get awesome stuff, check out the Patreon. There's free content on there too that you can grab right now. Also remember to like and subscribe, check out other videos on the channel, and yeah, that's all I got. I'll see you next time.